Welcome to Safe Doesn't Scale. I'm your host, David Walsh, founder of Limelight. This show is for marketing and growth leaders with a chip on their shoulder who are tired of playing it safe. Excited to have Dani Markovits on the pod today. Dani and I met quite a while ago when he was running creators at LinkedIn. He's now joined Shake Content as Chief Commercial Officer. Dani, thanks for joining us.
David, good to see you again. Thanks for having me. Excited to go over a few things together.
Well, where do we want to start? We've got so much in common and so many kind of alignment around how important content is, especially in B2B. Why don't we start with Shake Content? I'll start with a tough question. Why did you join? Why did you join the team? I met James, the CEO at SaaStock last year. He pitched me on the business, and I'm obviously very passionate about content on LinkedIn. And then a couple of months later, you joined, and I was like, wow, that is a big hire. So tell me, why did you join the team?
Great question to start, and yeah, a difficult one, but yeah, funny story. I think James, the CEO, slid into my DMs literally back in the day. I don't think I've ever told this story properly, saying like, I love your content. I love how you think about link content B2B. Would love to chat. And at that point, I remember saying, this is a small agency. I'm at LinkedIn, big name, and I'm comfortable. I'm doing well. Like, this doesn't sound like a good fit. But slowly, I met James, I met Harry, the other founder. I also was feeling it was a good time for me to explore other opportunities. I did my LinkedIn journey. I did it really well. Super happy about the whole experience, but I was missing the extra, the punch. And I thought, I took a risk, but I also equally felt they took a risk as well, bringing me in. So I did feel it was a mute thing. And yeah, I guess and you and me share this passion about LinkedIn, the potential of LinkedIn when it comes to, content and B2B and using LinkedIn as a channel to drive business. And I felt Shake was doing it quite well. I know there's a
Yeah.
bunch of other agencies doing this, but it was a gut feeling at the end of the day. And I'm happy, never look back. And we're doing some cool stuff.
That's amazing. Well, your content is awesome. For those that don't know Dani, go to LinkedIn, check out his content. It is incredible. You had a pretty big role at LinkedIn and you were ahead of the curve, in my opinion, right? You saw creators at LinkedIn and how important they were before LinkedIn saw how important they were. So for people listening to this, they're heads of marketing, they're, standing up influencer programs, they're thinking about creator content for their founders, they're thinking about, I suppose, employee social and LinkedIn. And I think the question I have for you, let's start with what makes great content on LinkedIn? And then I want to come back to your role at LinkedIn and learn a little bit more about your journey. But what makes really great content at LinkedIn? Because you're killing it right now.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it. It's been a journey. I would say the first distinction that I think it's important to highlight it's what even makes a creator on LinkedIn. I had my own struggles when people were telling me back in the day, I love your content. You're such a great creator. I'm like, what? Like, I'm not a creator. I never felt like a creator. In my eyes, creator was like, you need to be super creative. You need to be doing videos in YouTube. And I was like quite the opposite. I still struggle with video, by the way. But at the end of the day, yeah, if you share thoughts or content in a way you're a creator, I think in LinkedIn it's less about maybe making it your whole career, but it's at the end of the day sharing your thoughts, what you're doing, your expertise. So I think that's an important and what makes a good content or what makes a LinkedIn creator is exactly that, right? Is sharing your business expertise, content that is more around your career. It doesn't need to be. There's a lot of overlap with personal content, and we can dive into that. But at the end of the day, and I think that's what's also happening more and more, is content that only you can actually say it. And I'm a big proponent of that.
What you were saying is essentially that content that's authentic, that comes from the actual creator, and it's stuff that nobody else can talk about. That what makes people different. And I think that actually leads to another question, which is like AI and content and LinkedIn. It is flooded with generic slop, and it's getting worse Now, maybe it's getting better recently, I hope, with the new algorithm,
Yeah.
etc. But it just got flooded, like every other, I suppose, social media, right? When these new tools became available, people used them and then realized like everyone can create content, but if everyone creates content, it's AI content. It's all generic, it's all slop, and it's no contextual storytelling. Like I was actually there, I actually did this, and I think that's what you're saying. It's like to stand out from the crowd, to stand out from the AI slop, it has to be authentic and it has to be something that only you can talk about. Let me ask another question because the marketing leaders on this that are trying to force their, I say the word force, get their team to create content, they struggle with consistency. So, when it comes to consistency on LinkedIn, how important is that? And what tips do you have that you share with your clients on how to create consistent content? Because it's easy to create one post a month, it's hard to create 3 posts a week.
Yeah, a few things to unpack there. And I agree. Slop has definitely been becoming more of a thing, not only on LinkedIn, right? I would say everywhere. On LinkedIn, maybe even more because I think it's easier to create content on LinkedIn. Hence, there's more slop. I'm always a positive guy, and I like to think that, yeah, this presents an opportunity as well for those of you like you and me, maybe David, who wants to approach LinkedIn well with no shortcuts, with actual insights and nuance. So I think that this might be even a positive again
Mm,
for the ones that are playing the long game and not again cutting corners. And yeah, I think the consistency bit is crucial on LinkedIn. Not to even get into the algorithm because nobody really knows, but one, I think all algorithms in a way reward consistency. Two, more importantly, sports analogy, the more shots on goal, the more goals you're gonna score. I think there's something there and you get better at it. But I
mm,
think my biggest thing on LinkedIn, and it took me a while to get there, is to understand what makes content, what's a good angle, and what type of content can you share. At the beginning, I remember a few years ago, I was thinking to myself, okay, I want to start creating more content. And I woke up one day and what can I talk about? And it was so hard, right, to come up with unique ideas or, what I thought it was the most original concept. And you can approach it that way, but I think that's hard. Whereas you don't need to reinvent the wheel. At the end of the day, just talk about what you're doing, see your calendar. Who did you speak with last week? What are you reading? What's happening in the news? And at the end of the day, just bring it back to your own world, to your own
mm.
lens. And that's a much easier way to create content and a much easier way to create that consistency. So now I have the other problem, which is that there's too many ideas to share, too many things happening, which I'm excited about. But it's just a reframe of how to approach LinkedIn. And I think that's
Yeah,
key. So we're really good at helping clients extract that knowledge and enable them to share those thoughts.
I love that. I mean, for those listening, right, Shake Content is like experts at creating content for B2B companies that is also video content and how to amplify their voice of their employees and their founders. And you guys do some really great work. So we'll come back to how that works and who you focus on and some of those things. The people listening to this heard that you work at LinkedIn, right? And that you used to work at LinkedIn. Talk to us about the role there. What did you do? Because creators at LinkedIn is now starting to seem like a priority. And I'm curious, when you started, what was what did creators at LinkedIn mean and what was your role? And talk us through it a little bit.
Yeah, we love to. And yeah, now it feels like that makes sense, right? Yeah, there's creators on LinkedIn or there's content. Back in the day, it was the opposite.
Yeah.
So I joined as one of the first ones on the team. It was exciting, one, because it was a completely new thing. Two, credits to LinkedIn, they did invest quite a lot on the team. So it became like LinkedIn's baby. We had a growing team and we had a lot of room to explore. It felt like a startup within LinkedIn, which was quite unique. And I would say the role or objectives were always changing. And the way I see it, which even though it was not the official job description, but that's how I like to say it, we were brought in to change LinkedIn is or change how LinkedIn is viewed. And I think it happened. I think LinkedIn was always and still is a place to find a job or to hire your next employee. That will always be one of the core features of LinkedIn.
Pillars.
But
Yeah.
nowadays, and that's something me and you are a big part of, I'm seeing people in the tube or in the subway using LinkedIn. I'm always watching, right? My wife using LinkedIn as if it was TikTok. Again, that was not the case. That was not a given. So my
I wanna
role,
I wanna actually jump in right there because this is super interesting. I met the team at LinkedIn. I flew up to San Francisco about 9 months ago, and I sat down with the team and I said, like, "Tell me your priorities when it comes to creators." And the person was senior director, like, really, you know, I suppose, like, higher up, and he started off with this alignment to what the goal of LinkedIn strategy is over the next few years, and it was, think of LinkedIn, 1 to 5% of users actually log in every month or every week, right? We need to make sure that they're coming back more frequently. And what makes them come back more frequently is if they get value. And the value can't always be I'm looking for a job, because you're not always looking for a job, right? The value needs to be I'm learning, I'm
spot on.
being educated, right? And to learn something and to be educated, you need good content and you need to see people you respect or learn something new. And so it always comes back to, what does the feed, how good is the feed? How accurate is it? How make sure it's not too saturated with ads, which was a problem in the past. And it always comes back to, like, great content that educates you, that you learn something, will make you come back to the platform. And if you look at LinkedIn user, daily active users, and I don't have that data, but I'm sure it has expanded and exploded, not just the amount of people, new signups and new users, especially globally, not just in the US. It's actually how frequently those users are using the product. And they're thinking of it more of a social network than just a job advertising platform. And I think that's what you're saying, is that your team were, responsible for some of that.
Yeah, I think we were very much responsible for that. One other thing I would like to add on top of what you just said, which I think is spot on, now I see as obvious, but it wasn't, that really creating content or even just engaging, leaving comments, it really opens doors, right? And I think LinkedIn's mission vision evolves around, connecting the world and bringing opportunities to the workforce. And I was maybe naive, but I didn't expect content, of course, good content, to attract and open so many doors. So I'm a big believer in that, and that can be, of course, to bring in deals, sales, ROI, to even just getting your next job, getting you seen by a recruiter. I even speak to students, and I'm always pushing people to post on LinkedIn. I'm called the LinkedIn Whisper lately. I was not a fan of the nickname, but I guess I'll lean into it. Uh, but I think
Pause for a sec. Tell us, the LinkedIn Whisperer. Tell me more.
yeah, at some point I don't know who came up with it, and it just took. And now, like, my colleagues, the people I work with at Shake, are starting kind of taking the piss, but also, and now I'm just like owning it. But to my point is, even to students that, yeah, they have less potentially to say than a CEO who has seen it all. I'm like, just talk about what you're doing in school, what you're learning. At the end of the day, it's the best way to stand out. And I think content is a magnet. I think that's the word. It really attracts opportunities, like-minded people. It's not magic. It can change your life. That doesn't mean it will always change your life. And I think LinkedIn is specifically the case for that. So yeah, that's why I'm so excited about LinkedIn. And even though it feels like it's getting more saturated, which it is, I still feel it's early. So I
Mm.
think,
Let me transition a little bit, because I think what's interesting is LinkedIn. So I took my following from, I don't know, a couple of thousand to 46,000. And I couldn't agree with you more about it opening up doors and opportunities. I've had podcast invites, speaking engagements, revenue, and customers mostly come from LinkedIn. Like, it hugely impacts and adds value when you do it consistently and you show up and you're willing to put yourself out there. I think that's a big one, right? You'd have to be willing to put yourself out there and fail, right?
especially
Every
in the
so
beginning.
often. You think that every post you're gonna feel perfect before you click send. I still am like, I don't know if I should click
I
send.
know.
And then I just post it, forget about it, and try bury my head in the sand, and then hopefully come up a few hours later and be like, okay, it actually performed well, or oh no, it didn't. So I think, for folks listening to this who have tried this, it can feel somewhat like a hamster wheel when you get into it, right? Meaning you're constantly looking at LinkedIn, you're constantly analyzing content, you're writing content, you're engaging. It becomes a full time job, right?
Yeah.
So, question for you is, how do you make LinkedIn not feel like a hamster wheel? And what is the line at which you don't want to cross, where you're spending too much time on
Yes.
LinkedIn instead of doing your day to day and actually running your company or building your business or selling to your customers or whatever role that you're in? So the question is time boxing, efficiency, and when is too much on LinkedIn?
That's the question. And I always tell people LinkedIn is half the work is the mindset, Half the work is the know-how. As with everything, you need to know how to do it properly, and that's a good thing. But thankfully, I think that mindset is a big part of it. And I always tell people, you need to set one boundary. Second, you need to come up with a system that works for you. I always recommend, and of course, this is subjective, there's no one size fits all, to block a time in the week. It can be 1 hour
Mm,
in the week, and I'll try to make this very practical, especially for those of you who are just beginning. I always get this question: how can I get started? How can I make sure I maximize what I'm doing on LinkedIn? Block an hour of your week. Between you and me, I think we all can do that. And in that hour, make sure you get one post out. When it comes to that post, don't overthink it. That becomes easier as you kind of progress. At the beginning, it's hard, like you just said, David. You write a post, you come back to it. I'm not happy with this. I'll edit this. Maybe I'll sleep on it. At the end of the day, it's a post. It's not a book, right? Let's not make this more important than what it is. What's important is the long term game. So, one, don't overthink it. Also, it's very common knowledge that the posts you dedicate the most time and work are not necessarily the ones that end up performing better. So there's no
yeah.
causality there. Whereas the post you just quick thoughts or something funny sometimes even performs better. We can get into what's success and what's not. But my point being, don't overthink it. In the rest of that time of the hour, leave comments. We can speak about comments. I have a lot to add about comments as a strategy, and maybe send 10 connection requests to potential ICPs, partners, prospects, people you look up to, talent. That's a good, I would say, bundle that if you do it consistently, you'll see ROI immediately. Of course, there's more to do. You can always do more or less, but I think that's pretty realistic. And again, that's what I always encourage people at least to start with.
It's interesting when you get into this, you feel like everyone knows how to grow on LinkedIn and everyone, but actually it's a strategy that you only learn by doing it and over time, understanding how it works. And I think everyone relies on, oh, if you just create content, then you're going to grow. And it's like, actually, you need to engage on other profiles. You need to add and follow people. You need to participate in the dialogue and conversation. So you mentioned commenting. There's people listening to this that have never written any comments on LinkedIn. They're like, I just don't do it, right? And then there's other people that probably write 50 comments a day and then are overdoing it more than likely. So talk to me about comment strategy. How do you at Shake advise clients and how do you manage that? And yeah, talk to me a little bit about why comments are important.
Yeah, and before speaking about that, I think you're spot on. There is a strategy. It's not just posting content and you'll see growth coming. And by the way, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. Maybe it's a good thing. I think it's harder nowadays to grow on LinkedIn. It's not just putting curating a video and you'll get thousands of followers. That might have been the case back in the day. Now, again, it's harder. And something that I'm really excited about, which not many people are aware, it's within LinkedIn's new changes. It really matters who is saying what's happening. It's important as the content. Meaning, if I share a post which is 100% same as your post, David, I think in the post is about running a business. You have more experience than me running a business. I'm pretty certain that post will do better if you do it than if I do it, which I think it's really, really interesting. And I'm happy LinkedIn is, and these are, of course, a simplification, but I think that's what's happening. So I'm very excited about that, by the way. Um,
So just for
yeah,
folks that might have gone over somebody's head, right, listening to this, what does that really mean? I think what you're talking about is this new way in which the profile and the person's experience and what's written in their bio and who they are actually aligns to what type of content they should create. And when they create content that aligns with their experience and it connects with their profile, then it signals that this is high quality, authentic content, is what you're saying.
yes, it took me a while to frame it like that. There's a lot of nuance around the new algorithm and changes, but I think that's a good way to see it. Meaning, LinkedIn is evaluating you as much as it's evaluating the content. Of course, that's probably hard. There's a million things going on the back, but that's exactly the case, and I think it's a smart move. They're probably seeing what you've done, where you work, who you connected with, what have you said before, what are you saying when you engage, kind of your credentials, and of course not black or white, but I think that's the direction. And especially now with AI, with a lack of trust in people, in institutions, more important than ever. So I'm quite excited about that.
Nice.
Yeah. And to the comments, yeah, I tell people a few things when it comes to comments. One, LinkedIn is has been prioritizing comments quite a lot. You probably have seen a lot of new features where you can not only you can see the engagement your comments are having. So LinkedIn is really pushing for conversation. It's always been a conversation platform and not a broadcasting platform. So that's one. I'm seeing a lot of people basically get more engagement and growth and visibility from comments than the actual content. Two, if you think about it, a good comment is content on itself. People like to complicate things, but a good comment is content, is thoughts. You can agree, you can disagree. So it helps you build that habit. If you never posted, start by leaving comments on people you enjoy reading. Again, try to leave a good comment. It's not just a matter of saying great post, but it really helps kind of remove that friction. And at the and last one, I would like to say, if someone leaves a comment in your post, you really appreciate it. You, David, that create content like me, you start noticing, you start appreciating that people that leave a good nuance, maybe that they disagree with you, but that's fine as long as they're respectful. It's such an easy strategy as well to get business. Meaning, I'm still surprised that people just send DMs, and yeah, DMs work as well on LinkedIn. But if you just engage with my content 2 weeks prior, you leave good comments, you go out of your way to kind of add value, and then you send me a DM, the chances of me getting back to you with a positive response is gonna be 10x. It sounds so simple, and still most people don't approach it that way. So yeah, I'm a big
Mm.
comments believer.
And you know what, though? There's just this fine line because I speak to a lot of growth leaders who use automation tools, who hack into sort of, I suppose, aggressively spam people's profile and create these very sophisticated, like, I'm going to look at your profile, I'm then going to DM you, I'm going to connect with you, then DM you and try sell you. And I found it funny when somebody gave this to me about 18 months ago. It feels like a pitch slap, right? Which is the moment that you connect with me, you're actually slapping me in the
Yeah,
face because you're
immediately.
trying to pitch my product
Yeah.
or a product. So there's this like fine line that you need to, you don't want to cross. But I think that authenticity and engagement and like, thoughtful approach is very important. Talk to us about Shake content. Like for those listening, what does Shake do and who do you serve?
We are at a LinkedIn marketing agency. Sounds pretty generic, but I think a few things we have going for us. One, that we're specialized 100% on LinkedIn. I think that's quite rare, especially here in the UK. Most agencies do a bit of everything. We are specialists. We do what we believe and we go deep. Some people ask us, can you help us on Instagram, TikTok? And we're like, no, sorry, we do LinkedIn. Maybe a few years ago, that would be a bit of a risky play. Nowadays, I think it's a
Mm.
smart play. But we ultimately help not only founders, but CEOs, execs, leaders, even athletes. And we can speak about sports because I've been beating that drum quite a lot. I'm seeing a lot happening in the sports ecosystem, but we're just helping unique personalities stand out on LinkedIn, get more visibility, more trust, which I think is the ultimate currency. And we help them again navigate a platform, create quality content, help them with a positioning, with our messaging, ultimately bring them the opportunities they are looking for. And it's been great. Traditionally, we work with B2B tech companies, but more and more we're working with athletes, but also with professional services. I'm a big believer that the more boring the industry, the more potential. Meaning,
Mm.
you're a lawyer, if you're a tax accountant, where content maybe is not seen as a thing, that's where you can really stand out. Whereas if you're working in marketing, there's a million marketing voices. So we're starting also working with family offices, professional services, and yeah, we're slowly but surely growing and expanding.
That's awesome. Well, congrats. And it sounds like it was a natural fit when, decided to join the team. And I think your expertise around LinkedIn specifically and just like reputation in the industry obviously helps the team tremendously internally. Any, I suppose, final thoughts on where people can find you, where they can learn more about Shake, and anything you'd like to plug?
Yeah, I guess find me on LinkedIn. Obviously, I'm not very active on other platforms, but I'm always happy to connect. Shakecontent.com. We are doing a bunch of cool stuff. Last plug, I think we're trying to approach content differently. Besides just me and the other, leaders of the company sharing content, we launch a podcast, which is quite cool. It's a LinkedIn podcast as well. I've been exploring with, trying to generate buzz around LinkedIn through other vehicles, like just vibe coding different tools. Some of those are parody tools. A big believer of memes when done properly as well. That could be a second episode for us down the line. But yeah, at the end of the day, just I think the biggest risk nowadays, and maybe to finish, is not what to post, but it's probably not posting at all. So I think yeah, that's what's happening at the moment.
That's awesome. Well, Dani, thanks for joining us. I know people listening to this are going to learn a ton from what you just shared. I would recommend checking Dani out on LinkedIn. He's got 28,000 followers and he is creating awesome content. Thanks for joining us. We'll do it again in a couple of months for sure.
Thanks, David. It was fun.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Safe Doesn't Scale on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen. Limelight is the leading AI-powered B2B influencer marketplace and social signals platform. Brands like HubSpot, Webflow, and ZoomInfo use Limelight to power influencer programs at scale. Start your first campaign at limelighthq.com.